Right here. Oh, yeah. Is that it?
Yeah. As we prepare for Thanksgiving, Melinda and I would like to take a moment to reflect on the blessings of this season. As moms, all we want is a peaceful celebration with our families. The time we spend preparing the food that will grace our table is our gift to our loved ones. Each morsel is a token of our love and appreciation to our families. Our reward is the smiles on your beautiful faces and warm hugs from appreciative spouses. We count the hours of decorating and grocery shopping and baking as small steps towards a forever memory, snapshots of our special day. In fact, this is Melinda's first year to have the opportunity to host her extended family's Thanksgiving. She has expressed to me her excitement in preparing the first Thanksgiving turkey, and how especially satisfying it has been in learning the recipes that have been handed down to her from generation to generation. Didn't you say that those recipe cards were written in your own great-grandmother's handwriting? How special that must be. Some special memories that I have created with my children have been collecting fall leaves from our backyard and making turkey handprints. Gobble, gobble. Oh, and especially going around the table and saying what we're truly thankful for. So, as you look around your table at your loved ones this Thanksgiving, count your blessings. You may just be surprised at how truly blessed you really are. Oh, and one last word to you moms. Don't fall into the trap of doing everything yourself this Thanksgiving. Let your children help in the preparation so that they may be a blessing to others. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving's a great time to come together. But we got two perspectives from these two ladies. We have the wonderful heart that came from the woman talking about why she works so hard to bring Thanksgiving meal to her family. That they put their heart into it. That this is a reflection of their love for their family. And then we have the other mom that's telling you what she's really thinking as she shares all the hijinks, the problems, the struggles as she went through it. It's interesting when we think about Thanksgiving, we come together, we celebrate all that we're blessed with, we have family, many of us go around the table and say, this is what I'm thankful for, and we try to remember the blessings that we have and all the good stuff. Our family, our friends. But the rest of the year, and sometimes when we come together, we miss what Thanksgiving really means. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about that, what it means to offer ourselves. And last week we talked about thanks without giving, just trying to understand this word that we use for this holiday, thanks without giving, that sometimes we say thanks, but we don't really have any meaning behind it. There's some empty words to it that if we're not actually doing something, putting meat behind our words, then it doesn't have much meaning. We talked about thanking God brings with it a giving aspect of giving to others, giving back to Him, giving of ourselves. So the other potential problem with this word, with thanksgiving, is not just thanks without giving, where we use empty words, but sometimes it's giving without thanks. Empty actions that we have for others. And you see a bit of that from one of our moms here. That is giving at Thanksgiving, but not really into it, right? Not really offering her best. That makes me think about Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel. And Matt read it for us, but the story begins with Adam and Eve, the first two people in the garden. They disobey, and because of this, their disobedience, God kicks them out of the garden. And he could have just ended them right there, started over. He could have done a lot of things. He could have abandoned them out into the wilderness, but he didn't. He pushed them away from the garden, but he continued to be faithful and gracious towards them. They begin to work the ground, though it's much harder than it was in the garden. It still produces what they need. They begin to have children, and the first of those are Cain and then Abel. And as Matt read us the story and Stuart told the kids, Cain and Abel, two brothers, and they did different things. And so Cain worked the ground and he raised crops, and Abel had the flocks and he shepherded them. And one of the coolest things about this relationship with Adam and Eve and their family and God is that they still recognize that even though they're no longer in the garden, everything that they have still comes from God. So they continue to give back to God, to offer back to God some of what is His, that He has given to them. Cain and Abel are the first ones we see this happening as they bring to God a portion of what they have. Cain brings a portion of his vegetables, what he's raised. Abel brings portions of his flocks, and God finds favor with Abel and not with Cain. And man, I don't know if you've ever been there in a family, how hard it is to be the one that doesn't measure up. You know, in most of our families with siblings, we all kind of have an idea of who the favorite is, right? And in a lot of our families, the kids, we all think somebody else is the favorite. In my family, that's actually true. That's why we call him Prince Ryan. But in most families, we all think somebody else is the favorite, right? And so we have that feeling of nothing I do is quite as good as the other. Now, as parents, we know we don't have favorites, right? We love our kids, but there is a difference sometimes in the way that we respond to their actions. And God does the same. So here's I'm going to read again what happens. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought of the firstlings of his flock, their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. But for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it." I felt like Cain sometimes, where it just seems not unfair. God doesn't favor me. He likes my brother better. I brought the same stuff. I brought what I raised, and I gave it to him. It's not my fault that I don't have the animals. I brought what I have. And yet God doesn't seem to favor me. He seems to favor Abel instead. Well, we get an explanation why in the book of Hebrews. Chapter 11, it says, "By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain's. Through this he received approval as righteous, God himself giving approval to his gifts. He died, but through his faith he still speaks." So the thing is, they both came and they both brought a gift, but Cain's giving didn't have the same faith and heart that Abel's had. And so God was displeased, not because Cain was not the favorite, not because Cain was disliked, or because Cain didn't do the thing that he was supposed to do, but because God looks to the heart. And his portion, his gift, did not come honestly, sincerely, and in faith. And he let his anger and his resentment for that burn to the point that he killed his brother Abel over it. Cain's problem isn't injustice. God is not unjust. Cain's problem is his heart is off. I think sometimes we find ourselves in that same place. We might even be givers, but sometimes our heart is off. So let's talk about giving. Giving is good, right? We pretty much can agree across the board, no matter what your religion is or lack thereof, we pretty much can agree across the board that giving is a moral good, right? And we see it happen all the time. We see giving in our culture, in our country, in this world around us, everywhere. We see people give when disasters strike. And certainly there are people now that are giving to help support people in California that are losing everything to fires, huge blazes. People are giving to the firefighters and to help support them in the work that they're doing. People give when there's hurricanes, when there's earthquakes, when there's terrible tragedies. The automatic response is giving. And that's a cool human reality that we agree that giving is good. That we give to help those that are in need. You see it all over the place now. You can run races where you raise money to run. Somebody just ran from Alaska to Florida raising money to support a certain illness that they're raising. Pretty amazing. You see GoFundMe accounts, you see fundraisers, you see all sorts of stuff where people are giving to help those who are in need. It's a great moral reality of humanity. But there's something different when we give as thanks to God as His people. Giving as thanks to God is different than just giving because the need is there. Because it's more than just helping someone else. It is seeing the world through a completely different set of glasses. So there's really two postures when we look at what we have. When we look at what we own, what we have, our money and our stuff, we can either hold it with a closed fist or we can hold it with an open palm. The reality is most of us in this world hold it with a closed fist. Everything we have is ours and we hang on to it, and every once in a while we might open that fist to give a little bit away, but for the most part we are closed fist people. We hang on to what is ours. It is mine. I lock it up and I make sure nobody takes it. But being a child of God gives us a different reality. Being a child of God calls us to live a life of an open hand. An open hand where if my money and my stuff sits in an open hand, what that means is more can come in, but much can go out. You see, the difference is when we know who our Creator is, we recognize that everything we have is not ours, but is His. And sometimes we get to utilize some of it. We manage some of it for our good and for the good around us, but it comes in, it goes out, but our hand is open to what God wants to do with what is His. It's dangerous, it's scary, because I can't hang on to it. I can't make sure I keep it. I can't control what I have and what I'll have tomorrow if my hand is open. But it also means that I'm trusting my God to provide. And I'm trusting my God to do good with what is there. The important issue is not giving itself, but a heart of thankfulness. This is a practice that's been passed down from the very beginning, all the way back to Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve, right? It's a practice that goes all the way back that teaches us that a heart of thankfulness cannot be separated from the act of giving. We see that in multiple places throughout Scripture. One of my favorites comes from Mark chapter 12. It says, Jesus sat down opposite the treasury and watched the crowd putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which are worth a penny. Then he called his disciples and said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury. For all of them have contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in everything that she had to live on." At Thanksgiving, we get to say thank you for what God has done. We have an opportunity, especially as this season begins, to give. But we're called to do more than just give. We're called to live a life like Abel. A life where we offer the best of what we have, the best of who we are, back to God and to others. Not to give half-heartedly, not to give reluctantly, but to give with our whole heart. There's a story about Henry Ford. You know him? Our Ford vehicles are named after him. He once was asked to donate money for the construction of a new medical facility, and so he was a billionaire, and he pledged $5,000 towards this new medical facility. The next day, the newspaper read, Henry Ford contributes $50,000 to the local hospital. He was, of course, irate, so he called up the fundraiser and he said, that's not what I said. I told you I would give $5,000. The newspaper says $50,000. And so the fundraiser responded and said, tomorrow we'll print a retraction. This is what it'll say. Henry Ford reduces his donation by $45,000. He realized this was probably not the best idea. So he gave the $50,000, but in return he asked them to print the following above the hospital. I came among you, and you took me in. Today I want to think about Thanksgiving as a reality where we give with our thanks. We give as children of God, and we give to wherever God leads us to give. We give to those people that we encounter that are in need. We give through the church. We give through organizations that support others. We give through missions. Our church does it. We individually do it. We are called to be a people who give, but we don't give as the world gives. We give as Abel gave. We give as Jesus teaches us to give. Offering ourselves, our hearts, our lives to the one who has given us everything.